We're diving into the absolute epic rise and fall of an empire so incredibly powerful, its treasures literally amaze the world. We're talking about a civilization whose giant fleets sailed across uncharted oceans and whose cities grew to be the largest and richest on the planet. They rebuilt a battered, war-torn nation from the ground up, and in the process, ushered in one of the most phenomenal golden ages in all of human history. Let's get into the story of the Ming Dynasty.
So you have to ask yourself, how on earth does an orphaned beggar build the world's richest empire? I mean, it sounds exactly like a Hollywood script, doesn't it? But this is real history and is arguably the ultimate underdog story ever recorded. To really understand how this happened, we have to rewind and look at the incredibly harsh, brutal reality of the world he was born into.
Section 1. Rise of the Peasant Emperor, the ultimate underdog story.
Okay, let's dive into this. The 14th century was just a brutal time to be alive in China. The people had been crushed under the Mongol-led Yuan Dynasty for almost 100 years, totally burdened by heavy taxes, rampant corruption, and a string of devastating natural disasters. And right in the middle of this suffering is a poor peasant boy named Zhu Yuanzhang. Orphaned super young, he started out literally begging for scraps of food just to survive, eventually finding shelter as a Buddhist monk. Nobody, and I mean nobody, could have predicted this starving kid was about to become a legendary ruler. When rebellions started sweeping across the country, he joined a rebel group called the Red Turbans. But he didn't just join, he absolutely thrived. Through sheer determination and brilliant military strategy, he climbed the ranks, defeated his rivals, and drove the Mongols out of China. By 1368, the orphaned beggar was crowned the Hongwu Emperor, and the Ming Dynasty was officially born.
Section 2. Building a Golden Age, Rebuilding a Battered Nation.
Well, the new emperor knew that conquering China was really just half the battle. He had to pivot immediately to the monumental task of fixing a totally broken, war-torn economy. And he went straight to work. He restored agriculture, slashed taxes for struggling farmers, and kicked off these massive irrigation projects to heal the land. He completely reorganized the government, too. If you wanted to be a government official, you had to pass these notoriously brutal examinations testing your administrative skills and your knowledge of Confucius. It was a total revitalization. Because of these incredibly structured moves, the population just boomed. Agriculture flourished, printing technology expanded, and literature took off. The Ming Dynasty had essentially fast-tracked itself into an extraordinary era of prosperity.
And you know what's truly fascinating? How this specific golden age still connects to us today. Ming artisans were producing some of the absolute finest goods the world had ever laid eyes on, especially their legendary blue and white ceramics. This craftsmanship was so exquisite and so highly prized across Europe and the Middle East that it was culturally dominant. It was so dominant, in fact, that today the English word we use for fine porcelain is literally just China. That's right, their export was so famous it permanently named the product.
And speaking of magnificent creations, consider the number 1000. This brings us to another wild chapter under the ambitious Yongle Emperor. He wanted to make China the undisputed greatest power of the 15th century, so he makes this massive decision to move the entire capital to Beijing. And there he orders the construction of the Forbidden City. We're talking nearly 1,000 buildings and thousands of rooms in this stunning palace complex. It instantly became the beating political heart of the empire, and it still stands today as one of humanity's absolute greatest architectural wonders.
Section 3. The Giant Treasure Fleets, Projecting Power Across Oceans.
Now, as mind-blowing as the Forbidden City was, their greatest achievements might actually have been out on the open sea. Early in the 15th century, the Ming court looks outward and launches 7 epic naval expeditions between 1405 and 1433, all commanded by Admiral Zheng He. And these weren't your standard sailing trips. These were giant, floating cities navigating the vast Indian Ocean. They sailed to Southeast Asia, India, Arabia, and all the way to the east coast of Africa, trading precious silks for exotic animals and engaging in high-level diplomacy.
And this brilliantly illustrates just how far ahead of the curve they were. If you compare the Ming treasure fleets to the European explorer ships from the exact same era, the European vessels literally look like tiny dinghies. Admiral Zheng He's ships were on a completely different level of scale. While most of the world was relatively isolated in these small boats, the Ming Dynasty had the immense wealth and unmatched tech to just casually project power across entire oceans.
Section 4. Walls, Silver, and Collapse. The Defensive Turn and Final Fall. But, as we know,
golden ages rarely last forever. After the Yongle Emperor dies, the government makes a fateful pivot. They stop the naval expeditions and turn completely inward to focus on border defense. By the way, this is exactly when they rebuilt and strengthened the Great Wall into the version we all recognize today. But the empire's collapse wasn't sudden. It was this tragic, cascading failure. First, a massive population boom and deep political corruption strained the empire to its limits. Second, their economy, which had become heavily reliant on global silver, gets absolutely hammered by a 17th century global silver shortage. Third, nature turns on them with devastating crop failures and terrifying famines. And finally, driven by starvation and totally ruined economies, violent rebellions just erupt all across the empire. Which brings us to a really dramatic and somber breaking point. The year is 1644. The empire's defenses are broken. A rebel army actually breaches the walls of Beijing. Realizing it's entirely over, the last Ming ruler, the Chongzhen emperor, takes his own life. Shortly after that, the Manchus from the north sweep in, take control, and establish the Qing dynasty. Just like that, the nearly 300-year reign of the legendary Ming Dynasty was finished.
Section 5. The Ming Dynasty's Legacy, a civilization that shaped the world.
So, the political entity of the Ming Dynasty collapsed, but its profound impact? That absolutely did not. They left us with some of the greatest cultural and architectural treasures on Earth. The breathtaking Forbidden City, the awe-inspiring Great Wall, expanded global trade networks, and artistic masterpieces we still admire today. The story of the Ming Dynasty, from an orphaned beggar taking the throne to giant fleets conquering the oceans, teaches us this timeless lesson. Even the absolute most powerful empires eventually decline, but their achievements live on to inspire the world. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, but before we go, it leaves us with one really provocative question to think about. If an empire this incredibly wealthy and technologically dominant could completely collapse from within, what hidden vulnerabilities might be lurking in the global superpowers of our world today?